I'd like to call this October 28th meeting of the Forest Hills Board of Education to order. Roll call.
Mrs. Bissinger.
Here.
Mr. Fruman.
Here.
Mrs. Hubner. Here. Mr. Smith.
Here.
Dr. Heiss.
Here. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I'd like to thank everyone for coming. Quick safety briefing. In the event of emergency, we do have 2 exits to your right, and we have 1 up here to the left. Next up is our agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Tepfer?
Mrs. Bissinger.
Yes.
Mr. Fruman.
Yes.
Mrs. Hubner.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Dr. Heiss.
Yes. Next up, a public hearing for school calendar. Mr. Sinkovich?
Yes.
Thank you. This is new this year based on House Bill 59, which requires a public hearing because of the change in the school district as far as converting number of days of attendance to to the amount of hours the school should be in attendance. You have this copy of the PowerPoint at your seat, and also I'll kind of review it with you. Beginning with this school year, instead of the minimum number of days, the state has changed this to a minimum number of hours, as you can see there. For kindergarten, 910 for elementary, and 1,001 for the 7 through 12 students. Still defines a school district as 5 days. It does require, as we can see here, that we hold a public hearing on the school calendar prior to its adoption. We do plan to bring the calendar to you at the December meeting. We need 30 days prior to adopting the calendar, and because the November meeting is going to be at an earlier date, so we will bring this calendar for final adoption at the December meeting. We are not allowed to reduce the number of hours of instruction. If we do decide to change the hours, we have to consult with the Oaks and the community schools and private schools. As you can see here, I just took a look at what we do currently have at our various levels, and you can see at the kindergarten level, we presently have 475.75 hours of education. The minimum requirement is 455. You see we're over by 20 hours, and you're going to see this across the board that we are way above the minimums as we are now. At the elementary level, we're 146 hours over the minimum requirement just adopted by the state, and at the high school level, we're 149.5 hours over the minimum requirement. The Ohio Revised Code also allows for school districts to count 2 school days for parent-teacher conferences and 2 professional staff meeting dates, which you will see that in our calendar. The big thing as far as this calendar is concerned, the school days, the calamity days are not going to be included anymore. So if you have the minimum number of days, minimum number of hours, I should say, already built into your calendar, and you're way over that. So anytime we would have to use a calamity day, as you could see for school emergencies or inclement weather or whatever it would be, we would already have that built into the calendar. Allows for calamity days to be drawn from the hours in session above the minimum hours of requirement. I think that's all we have on that, and we're going to take a look at the calendar. If there's any questions regarding the new House Bill 59.
So by my rough calculation, that means we have 23 available calamity days?
That's exactly correct. Yes. But we've always been way over the minimum number of days and hours required and to be in session at Forest Hills over in that last number of years. The calendar that we are going to be presenting for the draft tonight and then for final approval will be, as I said, in December. As you can see in August, we're going to start the school year traditionally about the same time, August 18th and 19th for staff and students coming in on the 20th. We are having a staff development day on August 29th, I should say, on all of these. I'm just going through October. October, as we had this year, we will have a staff professional development day followed by a fall holiday Monday, where there'll be no school and a longer weekend.
Phil, if I can ask a question there.
Yes, sir.
What's the purpose of that vacation day? We haven't had that in the past, I don't think.
If I might answer, Randy, yeah, this is the first year we did have that. To make a short answer, I suppose, out of a long answer, when you put together a calendar, you only have X amount of days that you can work with in between. And when we go through here, we find out if we try to push everything and we push it all together, then we have some weeks, conceivably, where students might only be in school for one day. So when we try to move it around a little bit so we can have some equal number of days in each particular grading period, as well as, quite frankly, to have kind of an even balanced calendar. If you'll look in August, well, actually in September and October, kids are actually in session from the whole month of September and all the way through mid-October. It does give the teachers, it gives the children and the parents just a little bit of a break there. And if you look in the next months, you'll see there are some breaks that are commonly built in. So it's kind of a complicated formula, the way that the calendar committee puts this together, but I will also share that that might not always be the same in the future as we move forward with the way that the calendar happens to fall.
Gives a real nice break, just like we have a spring break, a winter break, and a fall break time. November, you could see that we'll have the traditional staff development day on November 4th, Election Day. We've been, because of all of our elementary schools are polling places, that we do not have school in session on that day. You will see in November 24th and 25th, previously we had elementary conferences, and we are going to move those away from that particular time so that we do not have students just coming to school for elementary students on the 24th. So we're going to move those times. And you can see there's some tentative times at the top left of your calendar for the conferences that we've already started working on. The other significant thing in December is that we're going to move the high school exams to prior to the Christmas or holiday break. So we're going to have exams the 16th, 17th, 18th of December, and the semester will still end, as you can see, in January, mid-January, January 16th. Going through the rest of the calendar is pretty traditional as far as the professional development days, the conferences. The spring break is right around the Easter week. We haven't put in all of our conference days or our testing dates and grading periods and things like that. We'll have that when we bring it forward for the meeting in December. And finally, we'll be out in, as we are very similar to this year, June 3rd. Graduation being the 31st, as it is the week after Memorial Day weekend. Any questions or comments?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think just as one last comment, moving the semester exams prior to that holiday break has been a wish. I know we've heard quite often from parents, especially in our PTA council, have talked about that, how it's very difficult to get the kids back on track a week after they come back from a long break to get right back in and then begin taking semester exams at that point. So I think that'll be a much better change in regards to moving ahead.
I like that the exams are up, but I guess the only worry I have, and I'm sure the committee discussed it, is you then have 2 weeks when you come back from winter break. Our teachers, if they wrapped everything up with the final exams,
That's the
you start new
very good
content
point.
for 2 weeks.
Very good point.
I just don't want that to be free 2 weeks.
No, absolutely. They will not be finishing up. The semester exam, of course, our educators are going to have to move some of those questions that they would have put on a semester test if they have the year-long class, so that it'll fall into the final exams. But what I really believe this will do is it'll really give them a couple weeks of uninterrupted instructional time, kind of a really meaty time for the students when they get back. Thank you. Now, one last thing, I'm so sorry. What we propose to do is to put this on our district webpage and as a draft so that people can take a look at this. So that if they want to begin to which they're already asking, what's next year's calendar going to look like, that they can do this, although it'll still be a draft, it won't be in its final version. That it'll give our public an opportunity to take a look at next year's calendar. Thank you.
Okay, next up, minutes. Approval of minutes from the Policy Committee meeting on September 4th.
Move those minutes be approved?
Second.
Mr. Tepfer?
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mr. Fruman?
Yes.
Mrs. Huebner?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes. And 4.2, approval of minutes of our regular meeting on September 16th.
Move to approve those minutes.
Second.
Mr. Tepfer?
Mr. Fruman?
Yes.
Mrs. Huebner?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes. Next up, correspondence.
Yes, I have a couple pieces of correspondence I'd like to share with the board this evening. First of all, we received notification that we received the Ohio Security grant from the Ohio School Facilities Commission. This year they were given some dollars to help districts and buildings across the state for some security purposes. Primarily those purposes were to make sure that entrance areas were locked down with keypads and those types of things. All of our buildings had those devices on those already, except for 2, which we did late last year. But we were able to, thanks to Ray, to go ahead and turn those 2 in, which was Turpin and Nagel. And we were able to receive some of the funding for that, kind of a reimbursement through that. It wasn't a lot of money, but I'm thanks to Ray for the work that we did to get that up in place. And then the second piece of correspondence is just as kind of an informational, received a couple of different emails in regards to the Village of Newtown. They're excited about having a new municipal center and also an American Indian Education Center. And they're going to be having their open house on Tuesday, November the 12th at 7. That'll be their first municipal meeting, their city government meeting there. And it's at the old firehouse, and I haven't been in it yet, but I've driven by. It looks really very nice, and I can't wait to get in to see that myself. So, thank you.
Any correspondence from the treasurer? Procedures for public commentary. We welcome public commentary at this meeting. All you have to do is fill out a green card, and we will get to it when that time comes. Next up, commendations and recognitions. Dr. Jackson.
Yes, what a delight to start this evening recognizing an individual who is a well-known educator in our district for many, many, many years. Jerry Latz, come on up, Jerry. We're here actually to recognize Jerry for not just his work with our district, but in particular, one particular program, and that's Camp Kern. Jerry brought the idea of Camp Kern to us well over 40 years ago, and that is still in existence.
I'm starting to feel like this now.
That's still in existence today. I think this is going to be its 43rd year coming up,
Yes.
if I'm not mistaken. And with that, the camp experience, it's quite an experience for students today. When I talk to parents, of course, that have been with us, they remember that as one of the highlights of their days at Forest Hills, and the kids still enjoy it much today. It fits our curriculum through a T. Just can't, say thank you enough for Jerry for bringing this to our attention. And I sat down to talk about that, but I do want to stand because I do have a certificate of commendation once the board approves it, but I'm going to go ahead and give it to Jerry. Congratulations.
Thank you very
Turn around there and
much.
get your picture.
Thank you.
Now, before the board go ahead, I recommend that you approve this.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Fruman?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mrs. Huebner?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes.
Wonderful. Jerry, before we were going to shake your hand, but he said he wanted to say something.
That would be great.
So-
I just have I'm not as young as I used to be, so I have to write things down these days. But I wanted to thank the board for the commendation bestowed upon me this evening. Yes, I proposed the Camp Kern program, but many teachers over 42 years through their dedicated service, have made this program a lasting success. It is no secret that without the 100% support of Mr. Wolf at the administrative level, fruition of this program would have been impossible. The most important recognition, though, must go to my Newtown 5th grade class of 1969-70. They were as fine a group of children as any teacher could ever have the honor of teaching. I wanted to do something special for them, and Camp Kern was the result. Because of this wonderful class, over 25,000 students have been able to enjoy Camp Kern. So, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Next up, Mr. Broadwater.
Mr. Broadwater's out of the district today, and so Peggy graciously volunteered to step in this evening. Thank you, Peggy.
Thank you. Okay, this is again one of the pleasures we have as high school administrators. We get to present to you tonight from both Anderson and Turpin High Schools the National Merit Commended Students. And again, you've heard it many times, just a little refresher. In late September every year, more than 2/3, about 34,000 students of the approximately 50,000 high scorers on the PSAT receive letters of commendation in the National Merit Academic Program. These students, as you can imagine, are our best and our brightest in most everything they do, especially in their academics. The commended students do not continue on in the process, but they are recognized always for their academic promise and often then receive scholarships from business organizations, local scholarships, national scholarships, university scholarships, and the such. So it is recommended that the board commend these students, and I will present their certificates.
I move that we commend the commended students in the National Merit Scholarship Program from Anderson High School and Turpin High School.
From Anderson, oh, sorry.
Go ahead. Okay, you go. Do you want me to go? You go.
Okay. First from Anderson, we have Andrew Brokaw. I hope it's saying. Spencer Dopp. Come on up.
Mrs. Kissinger.
Yes.
Mr.
Charles.
Fruman.
Yes.
Charles
Mrs. Huebner.
Gilchrist the
Mr.
fourth.
Smith.
Yes.
Dr. Ice.
Mia Ritter. Rebecca Tian. And I believe his parents are here, and obviously we'd like to recognize all the parents as well. From Turpin High School, we have Lori Maurer, John Moody, Kara Palucci, Nate Pohana, Elena Polifka, and Monica Sarkar. And I'm assuming a number of these students are at home studying because that is what they do. And I would love the parents to stand and be recognized as well, because without their support, this can't happen for young people. So if those parents would mind standing. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, 6.3, Betsy Ryan. Yep, this is your chance. Just turn down the tab.
Okay, this is one of my most wonderful privileges as an administrator here at Central Office. I have the honor of presenting a commendation for Erica Langdon. Ask that Erica come on up. Last year, as a 7th grade student at Nagel Middle School, Erica Langen took the Northwestern University Talent Search. This is a research-validated program that provides assessments, and in Erica's case, she took the ACT and SAT. She scored within the 99th percentile, the top 1% in the Midwest for 7th grade students, and earned the second highest individual score in the Midwest on the reading portion of the test. On the reading portion of the SAT, she scored in the top 1% in the Midwest. Erica and her mother traveled to Northwestern University to participate in a special recognition where she received a certificate and 2 medals for her accomplishments. And I had to chuckle when I read her, when Erica was interviewed. While Erica said she enjoyed the opportunity to go on stage to be recognized, the overall experience of being on a college campus and eating lunch in the campus cafeteria was her favorite part of the experience. Erica is a dedicated student. She works hard in school and tries to do her best. She also is a busy student already, playing violin in the Nagel Orchestra. She runs cross country at Nagel. She played basketball and ran track. And in her spare time, she has a passion for piano and plays softball. So, very busy young lady. And the superintendent is recommending a commendation be presented by the board. Pending your approval?
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Tepper?
Mr. Fruman?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mrs. Huebner?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes. Excellent.
And I would ask if Erica's mom is here?
That's cool.
That is
Seeing her again.
That is wonderful.
I think so.
What an honor for an 8th grader, actually 7th grader at the time. What
Yep,
a,
that is fantastic. Okay, now we come to public commentary. I have no green cards. This is your chance. Okay. District updates from the superintendent.
there are a couple of things we want to talk about, but before we start with that, I would like to introduce Natasha Adams, our Director of Curriculum, and she's going to share a little bit with us about our curriculum strategies that we've been working on and a little bit about the report card.
My team's going to join me, but I'll introduce them as they begin. Good evening. We wanted to start tonight with sharing with you what we gave to the teachers at our most recent Professional Development Day as a way to cast the vision for the work we're going to be engaging in over the next several years as we kind of deal with all the changes that are coming our way. So you can go ahead. This first just represents the vision of our district, and we are still committed, obviously, to success for all students, and that all students is really our emphasis, and how do we individually reach and teach every single student and make sure that they're successful. We are dealing with a lot of changes in Ohio. Some of them are listed there, including the new learning standards, how we evaluate our educators, what we're referring to as the next generation assessments, the new assessments that will be coming into play next year, the A2F report card, which will be the focus of today's conversation, third grade guarantee, and early childhood improvement and digital learning. So this is a lot. Our entire educational landscape is really changing. And so we're trying, in a central office standpoint, working with the curriculum department and the student services department to figure out how we help put this together for teachers. And so our focus is really, what are teachers teaching? How will they best deliver that instruction? How will we evaluate how the students are doing, and how we evaluate what the teachers are doing? So then the next slide just gives you a quick shot. I know it's kind of small for all of you to read, but in essence, it's just saying that the work in the curriculum department over the next several years will be about real collaboration across the district, K-12, and that is essential. We want to make sure we've developed a viable curriculum that is cohesive, kindergarten through 12th grade. We want to ensure that we have a balanced assessment system across the board, because there is going to be a lot of new kinds of assessments coming our way. We're starting one this year you've heard of. It's the MAP assessment that measures student growth. And we're going to have to be able to take all these inputs and figure out how do we best incorporate that into our calendar year and and do what's best for students in regards to assessment. And lastly, we want to make sure that we have supports across the tiers of instruction. So no matter where you stand on the learning continuum, we have built-in supports that are a part of the Forest Hills program, not educational lottery, but systematically in place here as we kind of shift to a growth mindset. And that's as we kind of move today to the report card. We want to talk about the focus of achievement has always been vital in Forest Hills and across the nation. But what you're seeing and what you're going to hear more of is the whole idea of a growth mindset, where we're not just looking at achievement, we're looking at how students are growing every year. And knowing that this report card can never show all the strengths or all the weaknesses of a school district or a department, Dr. Jackson has partnered with some other school districts in the area and across the state to have a support document called the Quality Profile that has been available on our website since August, but I would just encourage all of you to take a look at, that helps paint a more global picture, because in Forest Hills, we're very proud of offering a very well-rounded education. But to dig into today, we're going to specifically talk about understanding the new Ohio's A to F report card. And it's been promoted as a report card that's simple for parents to understand because it's the A's to F's that we're always used to, but it's a quite complicated report card. There's some obvious changes that we are seeing is that the excellent with distinction rating that we're used to hearing about and having in Forest Hills, that's no longer in effect. What has been called AYP, which stands for Adequate Yearly Progress, is a measure that has gone away and is now being replaced with something I'll explain a little bit later. The proficiency bar has been raised, so from now on, we want to get students passing 75 or to 80%, beyond 75%, which is something we've been used to for years. And we're going to take there's new assessments coming. This year, the OAA will look formatted very much the same as it has in the past. But what has happened is where the new learning standards and the old standards come together are going to be the only assessment items that are left on that test. So that's true for OAA and will be true for the Ohio graduation test next year. Okay. We want to point out our enrollment. This just really reflects third grade through 10th grade, the tested students. It doesn't represent the whole district, but it gives you an idea of the percents that we're dealing with in each category, because back to that success for all students, the Ohio new report card holds us very highly accountable for the success of every single subgroup that we serve. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Brad Chamberlain, my new partner. He's the secondary curriculum coordinator for our district, and he's going to talk a little bit about some of the features of the new report card.
Okay, we'll start with performance index and indicators met. You do see that there are letters, go back one more, that's all right. You do see that there are letters attached to those, so I'll start with the A first. Indicators met, there are 24 different indicators. If you think about the OAA, it is grades 3 through 8, and there are 2 or 3 different tests in each of those grades. And then the OGT is in 10th grade, and then they also include the 11th grade, basically how many students, what's the percentage of all of your 11th graders, even after most of them did pass it and do quite well as 10th graders in Forest Hills, then those who did not the first chance can try again in the 11th grade. So all of those indicators together, we met every percentage benchmark put in front of our students for that. Our teachers do very well getting our students prepared for these tests. We had an A in that aspect. Now, there are scores that go with all of those tests, and that's the performance index, and we had an 89.6%, which was a B. I will note the Ohio Department of Education scale that they put out is 90 to 100 is an A, 80 to 89.9 is a B. No rounding for ODE, much as all of our students actually see on a report card, so not the most generous of scales there. If you go one more slide. There's a picture of some of the indicators. Those are, I think, grades 3 through 7. You can see the percentages underneath that. If you go one more. And that is the performance index percentage. So in the bottom right-hand corner, very, very small over to the side, our performance index is actually 107.5. You take all those tests and you get a percentage for all of the tests taken, advanced, accelerated, proficient, basic, limited, or untested, and basically all of those are given a percentage. And when you look at that, something of note is that 69.2, so almost 70% of all of those achievement tests taken by Forest Hill students yield a grade of accelerated or advanced, advanced being the highest, accelerated being the second highest. So a vast majority of our students do very well. There's even a new category this year called Advanced Plus, which essentially means that let's say you're a 5th grade student, but you've been accelerated, and you can take 6th grade math, for example. If you take the OAA for 6th grade and pass it or do better, you then get bumped up a category, and it gets a little more sort of oomph to your percentage there. Let's go one more. All right, so we're back to gap closing.
Okay, the gap closing is the measure that I referred to earlier that has replaced the adequate yearly progress score, and it's really measuring how are we doing in our district to close the gap in math and reading and the graduation rate when it comes to our groups such as socioeconomic, racial, and the disability categories. So you can go ahead to the next slide. This is one of those assessments that has a moving target. Every year it goes up a bit. By 2017, it's expected that all students in the area of reading will be at a 90% and all students in math at 88.5. So it will continue to move every year. You can earn points in this category by A, meeting the goal, which is represented there by the red line that's up and down, or B, by doing better than you did the year before. So it's very important that we continue to collaborate, work together as an entire school system to understand the challenges of each subgroup area and to make sure that we're meeting those needs through our RTI process and through a strong curriculum. We are, at this time, doing pretty well in this category and learning about it, more and more every time. And the unique thing is that it kind of depends on which school you're in, because you have to have at least 30 students in each of the subgroup areas to be counted, and so that varies across our district. Okay, up next, I'm going to invite Megan Stacy to come and talk to us. She is the curriculum coordinator for elementary, and she's going to talk about some new features of the report card that are coming in 2015.
Thank you. As Natasha mentioned, a lot is changing in the landscape of education, specifically in Ohio. And one of these measures is the K-3 literacy measure. This will be included on the report card in the future. And it really measures how well schools and districts are helping young students who are reading below grade level. So this particular component connects to the 3rd grade guarantee that we've talked about. And any school or district that has less than 5% of their kindergartners who are below grade level will not receive a letter grade in this area or on this component. The minimum range of a C will be a statewide average. So more to come on this particular component when it's included, but we just wanted to let you know that that's something that we'll see down the road. The next component is the progress component. We had talked earlier about the concept of growth, and are our students making a year's worth of growth? Are they making less than a year's worth of growth or more than a year's worth of growth? So the progress component measures the average progress for students to determine how much growth they have made. This is also known as value added. So in the past, on previous report cards, the value added component that you'll notice is kind of that overall component, which we received an A on that particular measure. That is what we've included in the past, but now there are also categories including gifted, the lowest 20% in achievement, and students with disabilities, and so those subgroups are all new. I want to point out that this, typically with value added, you're looking at 3 years worth of data, and in the past when we've looked at value added, it has encompassed 3 years, but because of these new components, this is only reflective of 1 year's worth of data. And in the future, these grades will be assigned using multi-year averages. So just wanted to point out that that's only 1 year's worth of data. In order to have a value-added subgroup, you must have a minimum of 6 students with usable data within the same grade and subject. So those are our subgroups, and I'll explain a little bit more about those on the next slide. So as I mentioned before, we had an A in our overall growth for the value added. The results on the right indicate the, for each grade level, value added is 4th through 8th grade. It doesn't include the 3rd grade achievement test because those students have only taken 1 year of tests. So it starts with 4th grade. The grading scale, when you look at it, greater than or equal to 2 years of gain is an A. Greater than or equal to +1 but less than +2 is a B. Greater than or equal to -1 but less than +1 is a C. Greater than or equal to -1 but less than a -2 but less than a -1 is a D, and less than -2 is an F. So that's how those grades are calculated. The gifted measure includes anyone identified, but it does not necessarily mean that we're serving them. So it's anyone who's been identified based on state criteria for gifted, not necessarily served within Forest Hills. The students with disability categories includes all students who are identified with a disability, but who do not necessarily have math or reading accommodations and or math or reading goals on their IEPs. So that's that measure. And then the lowest 20% in achievement in the state is reflective of the lowest 20% of students who, statewide in reading or mathematics. Something to note when you look, some significant green, so lots of areas of strength, but typically with 5th and 7th grade across the state, those are oftentimes challenge areas, and one reason is because the tests are not aligned vertically. When we look at the next generation assessments that will begin next year with the PARCC assessments, those are more aligned vertically, and so in the future, we're hoping that this is a positive change for those grade levels.
So even though they might make the progress of .9, they're saying that's still only a C then?
Correct.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
It's like a good progress.
As Brad was mentioning before, the grading scales are not necessarily intuitive to what we would like them to be, but yes, so a C is within that range.
Oh, graduation rate, okay. Graduation rate is what you would expect. There's a 4-year rate, and you do get graded on that as well. And the scale there is a 93 to 100 is an A, and for 4-year rate, Forest Hills with a 94.9% graduation rate achieved an A. And then there's also a 5-year rate for students who may need that extra year. Now the scale for that is they up the ante a little bit. It's a 95 to 100, and again, Forest Hills achieved an A in that category. I look at those as K through 12 grades. It starts in kindergarten, it lasts all the way through commencement, which can, at the high school level, be quite a hairy time, and there's a lot of students who need to be led or pushed across that finish line at the end, and I know that a lot of people do a lot of work to make that happen. And then the next one, go one more after that, is Prepared for Success. Now this is a new one, and there are, and the grading of it will come in 2015, and there's a lot that needs to come into focus from this, but essentially there'll be 6 different basic college and career readiness factors that will go into this component grade. A college admission test, dual enrollment credits, industry credentials, honors diplomas awarded, advanced placement, or international baccalaureate programs. And I will read directly from the ODE on this one because we're still learning so much about this particular one. Prepared for Success is a unique component. It contains 6 measures that do not receive a grade. They are, meaning they will only be reported on the report card. The component grade is based on the percentage of a school's or district's graduating class that demonstrates college and career readiness. Any student included in any of the 6 ungraded measures, such as a student who earns an honors diploma, is considered to have demonstrated college and career readiness. So the way that I read that is there are a lot of different ways to show that, and as a district you want to spread achievement across all demographics. Not every student will be in an AP course, but some of those students may need to, or may have the opportunity to earn industry credentials and vice versa. So there's a lot of different ways to be prepared for success, and they will give you some grading incentive on that in the future.
And the final component of our report card this year is the wellness and physical education portion, and that just means that there are now skill assessments that are taking place in our PE classes that we report on as a district, and some options where you see the X is what we've opted out of being a part of. So that's a broad overview of the report cards and all the changes that we are now experiencing and will experience in the future. We thought we'd open up some time for questioning if you had any for us today.
I have a question. We've talked, and I appreciate, and I think we all do, the quality profile. And that was, I kind of looked at it as a sort of a preemptive effort on behalf of school districts like us to show what else we do. And it's just not about a letter grade. But when people see people are going to focus on the letter grades. And I understand what you're saying. We're looking at 1 year progress as compared to 3, and that's why the letter grades don't look maybe like what they did in the past. Next year, how many years? Will it be 2 years then?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So will we ever
One
get
thing
back
to note though
compare
about
in
that,
3 years, or how does that work?
It'll be a rolling average.
Okay.
One thing is that the test will change this year though, not for OGT. It'll stay exactly the same. The OAA changes slightly, and that'll be just for 1 year until the new Park online assessments come the following year.
Okay. A really sort of simple explanation to people that call or write or email would be great. And I understand it. I think we all do. Yeah. Yeah. But it's good. When you see a C in a district that you think is an A, it's tough. And it's tough.
It's extremely tough, and it's difficult to try to explain what that is. They did an excellent job of trying to really keep this at a low level, and it's still so confusing. You look at the performance index alone. If you think about that one thing that I think Brad started off with a little bit, or maybe it was Natasha, the past 2 years we've had the highest performance index that we've ever had at Forest Hills. 108, and then this year 107.5. That performance index is based on a standard from 0 to 120. A 120 would mean that every child in your district, every child taking these assessments would have to score at the advanced proficient level, the very top of the top. No district in the state of Ohio has ever done that. In fact, the highest score that has ever been tallied in the state of Ohio is a 113. So really, for that A, and we wished it because we couldn't round, for that A is only 7 points. From 107, or 108, 9, 10, 11, 12, 36 points. I'm sorry, I can't add. 6 points. And it's very difficult to try to explain to somebody that there are very, very, very few districts in the state of Ohio that even come close to getting that A. And it really is that way and all the way around down the line. Think about next year as an example. Next year, just taking that PI index alone, kids scoring advanced in the higher content areas, okay, in the higher areas. In the past, to be proficient alone, not in the higher categories, but proficient, was a 75% passage rate. Next year will be an 80% passage rate. An 80% passage rate on new assessments that we've not seen. And we have no idea what they're going to look like. Based on new curriculum that we're just introducing into the. So that's why when we say we're Forest Hills and we do an excellent job in educating our children, it's very difficult to take these separate pieces and look at what's this grade mean, what's this grade mean, because quite frankly, an A is not an A, a B is not a B. A C is what?
Well, it's for the growth, it's showing 1 year's worth of growth.
1 year, C is where you should be, could be, should be. Now, we want to be A's and we're working on that all the time. But it's just a very difficult scale to try to share with people.
It is difficult, and it's also difficult because it's a transition period
Exactly.
too, so we're all sort of learning together. The 80% your dad would be happy about, he's always been pushing for 80% or above.
I was just push along those same lines. Back when he was pushing, we were at 96, and he said we need to be 98, and now we're 108. So that's, he's happy with that as well.
I just want to thank the team, the curriculum team, for that presentation. The entire central office, our entire administrative staff, our entire teaching staff across the board have been working really hard to get this new curriculum in gear, getting ready for the new assessments that are going to be coming about very, very quickly. And again, doing a great job working with our kids. So, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Probably overly bold, but come on, we do.
One of our national
Oh, good, absolutely, absolutely.
So we would like to take time, and her parents were here on time, but she's a very, very busy lady. So this is Monica Sarkar, and we would like her to have the opportunity to be commended by the board and her parents to stand and be recognized as well.
Congratulations.
They did already vote for you to be commended. Thank you very much.
And you can interrupt anytime.
Yes, yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I appreciate that presentation also because that is a complex subject. But I also wanted to recognize Dr. Jackson. The work that you did, I've seen recognized, you and I know it was a number of other superintendents on the assessment, has been recognized in this region and in the state. And I think that is a heads-up thing to do because we know people are going to have a difficult time understanding, and it doesn't really tell the whole picture. And the assessment you put together, I think, helps fill in some of the gaps.
All right, board discussion. Topics for board discussion.
About anything?
There's nothing on my list. Yeah,
I just have a couple questions, and I think there's been a little bit of discussion among ourselves and a little bit in the community about how we're proceeding with Fallon and Associates, and I just think it might be a good idea just to give a little update if you're comfortable doing that, and maybe talk about a scope of services and how we're paying for this, because I think there's some misunderstanding, maybe not any understanding at all. So if you would do that, that'd be great.
And I did have a couple more things to add.
Okay.
That's fine. We're good to get it. Yes, several months ago, or a couple months ago now, the board asked me to go ahead and look at, there were a lot of questions during the special board meeting that we had in regards to our district and moving forward as regards to facilities. One of the things that we thought we needed to do at the time was to really get a good impression and understanding of what does our community know about our facilities, maybe ask them questions about directions that they think, that we should take. So I contacted Paul Fallon from Fallon Research in regards to doing a community survey. He suggested at the time that we do a community survey, but he also suggested that we do not only a community survey, but a focus group. In fact, when my first conversation with him, he says, let's do the community survey, then we'll do the focus group. And then not too long thereafter, he called me back on the phone and he said, what we really probably should look at is the focus group first. And a focus group is basically just a small representation of our community, and to kind of get a general idea of a face-to-face conversation with them. So that is what he has been planning. He's the professional. He's been doing that in regards to planning this focus group that's going to be coming about here in the very near future. Once he gets the data from that focus group, it will help him then kind of get a general direction as to some of the questions for the larger community survey. As far as the community survey goes, we've had some conversation in regards to when would that come about. We also, I can give you a quick update of the Ohio Schools Construction Commission and where we are there. We have also at the same time enlisted the help from the Ohio Schools Construction Committee to take another look at our facilities. This report was done many years ago. To update that report or to actually provide us a new report, I'm pleased to say that the architects, the engineers with Ray and our crew have been in all of our buildings. Their work in the buildings is complete. They're now compiling some of that report. Just this week, we received just some preliminary data, and they're still asking us a few questions on some of our enrollment data, some of the demographic data. And so once those two entities get together and kind of get that in place, then we should be, I would say, probably in the next several weeks. Really probably the next 3 weeks or so. I don't know an exact time on that. We should be getting some preliminary data back from the Ohio School Construction Committee. So once we get that report in its entirety, our goal is to move forward with sharing that information with the board and the community, and then going out with a community survey. Hope I've answered some of those questions.
And both the survey and the focus group are random samplings that Fallon's handling. It's not
Yes.
anything that we're picking the people, this is 100% his expertise, he's randomly doing the selection, right?
Yes, absolutely.
I have two more questions. Do we have a written scope of services? I haven't seen one yet, and I believe we have to have something, or he couldn't be beginning his work. So there's got to be something.
I have a proposal that he sent to Rick and I think it was late September 19th or the 20th, right in there sometime, that shows some of that in regards to what he's doing, kind of a generalities of what he's going to be doing.
Okay.
I do have that. I can provide that for you.
And then the last question is, how are we paying for this?
Actually, it's going to be an expense of the district. There are going to be two separate costs, the cost for the focus group itself, and then also a separate cost for the survey.
Everybody's heads going. Okay. Have we sought, I thought we were potentially seeking private funding for that, but we're not, we're just going to assume it ourselves?
We actually did get some private funding
Okay.
for part of the focus group.
Can I add one piece to that? I think the other piece to finish what Dr. Jackson is saying is that both the OFCC report communicated will also help gauge survey questions. I think it's both of those pieces. It's not simply the focus group, it's both. Obviously, because that's one of the concerns of previous studies is what does the community really know about our facilities? So if communicated widely, then obviously random sampling of people that pick up the phone for a survey would have had a chance to read that, and some of that feedback would come out as well. So I think that's the other part of it. At least we hope that information gets into as many voters as can understand what the current facility situation is.
I think that's great. I think we're heading in the right direction. My only concern is what it continues to be. I think I'm the lone person here, but I don't know why we're not waiting for the focus group until after the OFCC report comes in, because, I don't know what Paul Fallon does exactly, but it would seem to me that would be a valuable tool for him to look at before he does the focus group. But if there's some reason to do it separately that I don't understand, maybe that's the reality.
And Julie, you've got a very good point. I asked that same question.
Right.
And Paul said to me specifically, he says he thinks it's imperative to do this now, and then use this information along with the survey, to help with the survey and the High School Facilities Commission report to do this. Because his first thought was to do it later. He said, no, we really need to do this first, up front. So.
Well, and Julie, you'll recall from the work session, I had made the uninformed comment that I wanted to see the questions first. And what I came to understand is I'm not the expert. It's not something I do. That's what Fallon does. I ought not have an input in the questions any more than I should have an input in how somebody like Fallon does his work. He thinks the focus group ought to be done now. It's not something that's going to be publicized. And then we will wait to do the survey until we get the report from the state, so that the community, with knowledge then, can respond to the questions in the survey. Makes sense to me.
Another thing you do too is talk to Paul Fallon. I've done that too. He's very approachable.
It's a very good idea. Thank you.
Yeah, I think your comment is well taken about inputting on the questions. That's a totally inappropriate thing for the client to do. We, us being the client, we ask for what we want to understand. He then writes the questions to make sure there's no bias in them. I know last time we did a survey, I think we had some questions that clearly had some bias in it, so it's inappropriate for the board to edit or adjust questions that's in a survey like that. Anyway, thank you.
All right. Next up, we go to our consent agenda portion. First up, student services, a residency waiver. Phil? Oh, or Betsy? Betsy, all right.
Okay, Student Services has items 10.1, a residency waiver for a student, Emily Alsip at Anderson High School. Item 10.2 is our Anderson Chamber Orchestra. They are going on an overnight trip to Bowling Green State University on November 7th and 8th. All of the information is included in those items.
Next up, curriculum. Dr. Jackson?
Yes, Dr. Rice, and the first 11.1, I lost my, is a policy, this is the second read actually to vote on today, would be, it's called the equivalent education outside the schools. Again, kind of requirement from House Bill 59. In regards to homeschooling, this has the whole idea of that the local districts like ourselves will take back the homeschooling approval process, which in the past the county had done. But at the same time, this also, which was really the meat of the bill, was about how homeschooled or home-educated children as well as non-public students will have access to some of our extracurricular activities if they do not currently have those in their current schooling.
Okay, 11.2.
11.2 is first read of a number of policies. Many of these, in fact, all but one, I believe, are requirements from House Bill 59 as well as other matters. And it's a number of 20, I think 28, 29 different policies. So take your time, have fun reading those, and we'll talk about more in detail in the future.
Just, can I comment?
Yes, go ahead,
The
Randy,
policy
sorry.
committee met 2 times. The first time was on 11.1 all by itself, because there was some time urgency on that one. And we worked that extensively, and we unanimously support what's been presented. The policy committee also met, was it last week?
Yes.
And went through the 20 or so, and most of those are required policy changes. I think there were very few of them, help me remember, that we actually even had any choice whatsoever. Most of it was required by state law.
Right.
Yeah, I want to thank, I'm on the policy committee, but I want to thank you all for meeting without me there. I got stuck at work, and Randy and I talked, and thank you for forging ahead.
It was actually, even though there was a number of policies, as Randy is saying, that our hands were tied a lot because this is what was required by law to put in our policy, and many of the policies. Thank you.
All right.
Are you ready?
Next up,
Mr. Lutz would be happy to know that tonight we are motioning that the board approve the outdoor education program for the 2013-2014 school year. These dates will happen in May for each school. These will be our 5th graders from all of our elementary buildings. They'll be going to the YMCA of Metropolitan Dayton at Camp Kern. The cost per student is $122 to be paid by participating students. This fee is not a changed fee. It's been the same as it's been in the past. And provisions will be put in place for people that need partial scholarships or need financial assistance to attend the camp.
Great, thank you.
Moving on to
11.4.
11.4, I'd like to have you recommend the grade 11 AP Language and Composition book. It's called The Language of Composition, Reading, Writing, Rhetoric. This textbook will be made available for review in the curriculum department until November 18th at the next board meeting. And so we're asking for your formal approval of this textbook at that time.
Thank you. Next up, Human Resources Report. Tammy?
Item 12.1, items A and B are resignations. Item C is a leave of absence. D, you see a change of assignment. Item E also encompasses F, G, H, and I. Item F, we have a number of appointments. It goes pages 1 and 2. Then you see item G, which would be special services appointments for 2013-14. I will note the 24/7 learning instructors for Nagel Middle School in there, and those are funded by the Forest Hills Foundation. And I see Dee Stone here, so I just want to give a shout out to the Forest Hills Foundation. Moving on, item G, special services, continues on page 3, page 4, and until page 5, where we have item H, and this would be the appointment of coaches and advisors. And you will see the name, the building, the position, and salary, again on pages 5, 6. a lot of coaches. And on page 7, we have our substitute personnel, and that carries over to page 8 as well. And since the board meeting of September 16th, we have had a change in staffing level. It's increased 1.61 FTE due to bus route changes, and the staffing level now stands at 770.47 FTE.
Thank you. Next up, business operations, Ray.
Item 13.1 is the payment in lieu of transportation. The district's required to provide transportation to students attending schools outside of the Forest Hills School District who meet certain limitations. The payment of $240.66 is prorated over the school year. As you may recall, each of the last 3 years I've come back in April or May to redo this. Unfortunately for us, we have to bring this item early in the school year. The state changes the amount of the payment every year late in the year. So as of today, it's $240.66, and I've listed the schools that we go to, and Susan's attached a resolution. So the treasurer recommends that you approve the resolution for payment of lieu of. 13.2 is the...
Let me just to clarify that, I think it was interesting when I first learned, the whole idea behind the payment in lieu of transportation is that if a non-public school, we provide transportation within a 30-minute radius.
It's 30 minutes from their home school.
From their home school. And the payment in lieu is if everyone from that school decides not to use our transportation.
Correct.
Then we pay
it's
them.
all or nothing.
Right. Okay. Right. People find that interesting. So.
And we get challenged
we pay
on some...
them to not, yes.
We get challenged on some of the same schools every year that are 45, 50, and 60 minutes away, and so...
Yeah. And it's during the regular hour, and we just...
Yes,
when
and we
it gets
always...
challenged, we just use...
We defer to the area coordinator's office. We allow them to do the timing, so they're the final authority on all this.
Okay.
Item 13.2 is the request to bid, advertise for bid. We're required to ask the board for their approval to bid on summer projects if the value of the project is $25,000 or more. As of this moment, what we're looking at is doing some replacement roofing at Sherwood, replacing the surface of the Nagel track, the fire alarm system at Air, the carpet at Sherwood Elementary, and a portion of the windows at Turpin High School. The treasurer recommends the board approve the request to authorize the treasurer to advertise for the bids on the stated projects.
Hey, Ray, just to comment, Ray, on that, it's something obviously we'll bring back to the board in future months with actual projects, but these typically would be funded by a permanent improvement fund, and that is probably not going to be the case with most of the ones that we're talking about. They will be, we'll ask the board for a transfer of general fund operating dollars to the permanent improvement fund to fund these later in the spring. These are projects, some of which have been pushed for a few years and have reached the point where we can't wait, i.e. the Sherwood alarm, that things come up when you push the envelope a little bit. So that's the funding source of most of these.
And as a nice segue, speaking of the Sherwood alarm, 13.3 is a change order for that alarm. It's in the amount of $573. We had to make some changes in a few of the devices once the original engineering had been completed. So the treasurer recommends the board approve the change order submitted by Atkins and Stang Incorporated in the amount of $573.
You know, given the circumstances under which we're going to do that work, I'm really floored that we only have $573.
Well, that's because of item 13.4. I put these in a certain order, so I've learned from past board members to do so. 13.4 is Motes Engineering, the contract renewal. Motes Engineering is the district that is the organization the district has used for all engineering and electrical design since 2001, and a great deal of credit for what you're referring to, Mr. Fruman, goes to the fact that on Wednesday of the weekend before Labor Day, this was discovered, and over Labor Day weekend, they put together all the plans that provided us with only a change order of $573. So the treasurer recommends the board authorize the treasurer to sign the renewal agreement with Motes Engineering.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay. The last one is, I'm not sure why it doesn't have an agenda item here.
13.5.
Yeah, I don't have it on here on mine, but it's a Duke Energy Retail Sales Electrical Supply Agreement. We went out, we did an RFP again with Marymount and Indian Hill for electrical supply. We bid it out to probably 10 or 12 electrical suppliers, received bids back the 1st of October, negotiated that list to a smaller number, and are recommending tonight the board approve the extension agreement with Duke Energy Retail. So the Treasurer recommends the board approve the attached contract for Duke Energy Retail for electrical supply from January 1st, 2014 to June 30th, 2017.
Excellent. And for the record, it's the standing total right now for savings just from that program is $887,000. So that's excellent. Next up, Treasurer Report, 5-year annual financial forecast.
Yeah, item 14.1, the last time we shared a forecast for approval was back in May of this year. Obviously, the end of the fiscal year, so we have FY13 actuals as well as an additional year. I kind of spelled that out to the board, but the current collection rates of our property taxes as well as the state funding estimates that we got the most recent 2-year budget, and also the note that we have projected that to remain flat after this 2-year biennium. So we'll obviously that will be something we'll see as we move forward. And we've updated the expense lines for estimated salaries and benefits, as well as other items on expense items as we plan to move forward with our union contracts, which we'll be bringing to the board in a future meeting. But those are built in to this forecast. And I think it's important to kind of look at the summary. With all these changes, the forecast projects a positive cash balance through the 4th year, FY17. This means financially the March 2012 levy, which was projected to last 3 years, will last, based on this forecast, 4 years, and those being FY14, 15, 16, and 17. We also show a negative cash balance in FY18 of $6.9 million, which obviously we will manage from here on out, but that's based on the assumptions, and they're a big part of this. We look at the big line items, but there's a lot that goes in that could change and will change. Big items being any kind of mandates that we have, what happens with our health care, which is why we push really hard to try to cap those costs so they're known costs, which I think separates us a little bit with regard to our forecast and our ability to project future expenses. So it's recommended the board approve the 5-year forecast and the assumptions that are both line items in this agenda. And
14.2. Go ahead.
That's a major accomplishment. It should be celebrated. I'm not sure people understand the magnitude of, in our last levy, promising 3 years, and with this 5-year forecast, we're now going to be able to confirm that we should be able to go 4 years without another levy. Is that?
No, I mean, I think that was our hope all along, and obviously we've got some things, still more heavy lifting to do to get there, but I think I feel very confident in the numbers that we have now that we have some room when it comes to operating dollars. And obviously that room, I guess, would be even larger if we weren't taking what amounts to maybe $500,000 a year in funding some of our capital projects. I think that to keep that in mind too, that would be probably another year with that in mind. And I think that's something we just need to continue to work with our communities to understand that we're really doing some good things with operating dollars to make this last a 4th year, despite some of the other challenges that we have.
And the other thing is our average change is minus 2% after many, many, many years of averaging in the 5s and 6s to make this much of a change. That's also a very dramatic and positive.
Well, and we hope, I mean, our whole team, we hope to be able to share more and more of that information with our community, is that what have we done? We've responded in a lot of ways. We obviously don't want to take money from Natasha and Betsy and the rest of their budget, so we have to do it in a lot of other ways, and I think that's the good things you see Ray doing, and some other things that keeps money in the right place, but at the same time, a lot of our, 850 employees did some heavy lifting too to get it done, and I think that's huge. We hopefully will be banding together here for a long-term agreement that we think really shows a partnership that, as we're all in this together, and I think that's the big part of that. The reality is we're a service business, so the big part of what we do is people, and people help to make that happen too. So.
Well, I think that needs to be, celebrated is the right word or not, but recognized, because that is a dramatic change, and we've heard from the community that kind of demand from some portions of our community, and we've responded. And I think you and the district deserve some credit for making a fairly dramatic change.
Well, we hope that our community, we have to get it out to them and show them, but we hope they will see the importance that we did some pretty tough things internally to make that happen. Some that a lot of our partners didn't do in other districts, and we think they were the right thing, and we stand by them. But that's the key there.
Thank you. Next, 14.2, employee benefits.
This is a renewal item. Our dental with insurance through Dental Care Plus expires at the end of the year. Haran, through our Swoosh Consortium, obviously did some negotiating, and we were able to secure a really low first-year renewal rate, and obviously with that renewal rate, be able to lock in a zero the second year. So we have, as recommended, board approved a composite rate of 92.72 to Dental Care Plus effective January 1st of 14, 2 years through December 31 of 15. So we were able to obviously cap that rate for 2 years. And item 14.3 is an item we've shared over the last few months with the board. There's a start real briefly. In 1994, the parcels were TIF'd throughout the community, 2,000 parcels that were undeveloped. 2 of those parcels are down, part of the River Downs development that's happening. We are almost 20 years into a 30-year TIF agreement, and it's now time that those parcels are being developed. So the township approached the district. We've been talking really for over a year now, but the time came for calendar year 14 to make this effective before then. So these 2 parcels, the items in front of the board are a TIF agreement as well as a revenue sharing agreement. The TIF agreement would really, what's called DTIF, take those 2 parcels out of that original TIF and then extend that TIF 30 years longer. So whatever development occurs on these 2 parcels, which unfortunately are not the prime parcels with that development. If you've been down there by the River Downs, one of them is the stables that we get, and the other is across the street that goes uphill a little bit. So we're hopeful that over time that those 2 will amount to something substantial. So the big part of this agreement is we're really partnering with the township and the city, and the big parcels will be there, and that's where the big financial transactions will occur. But we, as always, want to be good partners and try to make this happen. So whatever development does occur there, money that would normally go to political agencies within the county would then go to the township for infrastructure in that area, and the district would be held harmless, and whatever tax revenue is generated by those parcels would come to the district as planned. So if that makes sense.
Really, all we're getting is what we otherwise would have given. The real financial benefit goes to the township.
Correct. And I think and like I said, with the big parcel, which is where the track is and the casino and all the good stuff, is real city of Cincinnati. And yeah, well,
That's an important point. Because I think
Let's annex that.
most people don't realize that's all Anderson Township.
right.
But Anderson Township is not the same as the school district line. The Cincinnati Public School District does come out into that area. And in case you're wondering, no, there isn't anything we can do about it, or we can't initiate action to make a change.
Can you pull
So
that
it's-
item up? Can you pull the item up to show the picture? I think it's just while we're talking about it. It's under the TIF agreement.
But over the years, over many years, we've looked at that, and there's little or nothing we can do about it.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, our hope is that there'll be obviously some revenue generations that occur. If you go to the bottom of that, all the way to the end. It's on the other one, I'm sorry. It's a revenue sharing, I'm sorry. We have been, this is version number 26 in the last 3 days, so we apologize for that. And you can see the two parcels which you, this is the track. Obviously, our parcels are here and here. This is the beautiful stables, and this is the cliff. But we're hopefully we'll have some development that will occur. But bottom line, it's the right thing to do to partnership with this. It's going to keep, the overall project will keep dollars here in our community and obviously ultimately benefit everybody, so.
Yeah, ultimately, it's good for property owners in Anderson Township, and so that is a good thing, but you're right.
So recommend the board approve the tax increment financing resolution and authorizing the execution of a revenue sharing agreement with Anderson Township as presented. And just one item in addition to that, I believe that there could be more of these coming up as whatever is left is developed. Keep in mind, it is on the back half of a 30-year TIF agreement. So if there's anything that is left to be developed significantly, we may be asked to do something similar, and obviously we would have more stake in the game at that point when it comes to finances. So to keep that in mind. And item 14.4, in item A, we have the donations, significant donations as always, but this month we want to recognize the Air Elementary PTA, 86 Chromebooks, almost $24,000, and the Anderson Athletic Boosters, over $32,000, helping the wrestling mats, basketball, volleyball, and a lot of other good things. Item B, we have a statement of board accounts, 2 accounts. We're waiting on funding, but we've met the criteria for negative balances there in Fund 516 and Fund 551. Item C and D is our receipts and expenditures by function. 39.76% of our projected revenue has been received, and 27.75% of the general fund appropriations have been spent or encumbered at month end. We're, for the most part, where we expected to be at this point, very much at our 3- and 5-year averages for this time of the year. Item F, we have the monthly bank reconciliations. G are a list of investments. H, amendments to the appropriations. Changes mainly to federal programs, no change to our general fund. Item I, we're requesting the board approve a new student activity fund. And J, we're asking the board to approve board service fund expenses. And just briefly on our Business Advisory Committee met on 10/21 last Monday. And it's, like I said, really some healthy discussion. And anything and everything is on the table. I would say 2 meetings ago, there was some discussion about the state report card, so it's not just the business and financial side. I mean, these are folks that are involved, and so I think what Natasha's done, I think getting that out would be awesome. This meeting, we really focused on the updated forecast, facilities, community engagement, the importance of trying to improve some of that in some other areas that we're working with right now. Negotiations and health insurance, and like I said, we usually meet every 5 or 6 weeks, and I can only take 2 board members, but anybody that would want to come, like I said, it's a great group of people. We're just added 3 members. I mean, really decision makers in the community, connected people in the community, but people that know that we're there to shut the door and talk about anything and everything, and really an advisory role. Nobody's empowered to make decisions, and that's working. So feel pretty good about that. We rarely have consensus. That's not the goal. We talk through anything. So I think if I open that invitation up for those that may have an interest.
I've had a chance to attend some of those, and I appreciate the work you're doing with them, and also all the time that the people who are part of your advisory board or committee invest. And by the way, I believe that's now required by state law, so you were ahead of the curve to, I think it was House Bill 59, now required that school districts do something like that. But I think what you're doing goes well beyond what's in the law.
There's a lot of goodwill there that comes about. Like I said, we aren't there to agree, but we're there to understand positions, and I think that's important because a lot of these things really aren't yes or no. They're just, you talk through things and people understand, yeah, we may not agree, but I understand your position. I understand what happened. I understand what that's all about. So, with that, it's recommended the board approve the consent agenda items 10.1 through 14.4 as presented.
So moved.
Second. Discussion.
Do we need to amend the agenda to include 13.5 since it was left off there?
We edited it.
Yeah, it's included.
It's on there.
Okay.
It's in there.
Yeah.
It's in there.
Question, we lost some IDEA money and Title I money. I don't think it was significant, but what was driving that? I mean, it was like 80,000 and 30 or something.
I'm not sure. The formula's changed, and you may see that when you go to Washington next, but some of those formulas changed, and it wasn't significant, but percentage-wise it was.
Okay.
I mean,
I'm just thinking about some of your programs, but anyway. Okay, thank you.
The other thing, our investment report, we have a $1.2 million investment. We have earned $26.75 in interest. So, actually, that's not in 1.2, on about 1.5 million, $26. Okay. Mr. Teffer?
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mrs. Hubner?
Yes.
Mr. Fruman?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes.
Thank you.
Dr. Rice?
Yes.
If I might back up, just, I know we're running along here, but I had said on item 8 that I had a couple other things, and we kind of went through that in regards to district updates from the superintendent.
Right.
I'd just like to say a couple of things. I'm very pleased with the fact that on October 24th, last Thursday, we had a visit from Dr. Santa Ono from the University of Cincinnati. He visited both Anderson and Turpin, got to tour our buildings, sat in on a couple classes, talked to a lot of our kids, and then talked to them about higher education. And about University of Cincinnati, but basically it was about higher education, and answered some phenomenal questions from our kids at both buildings. And just again, publicly thank Dr. Ono for what he did there. But he asked the question, well, gee, how many other, how many other presidents come and talk to you? And I said, we haven't. And he was shocked at that other university presidents in our area wouldn't be in our buildings talking to our kids. So that's number.
Like this year.
Yeah, this year.
Like, no, never. So far this year, how many of you asked? So I was like, yeah,
So, also, just as a quick update for safety, and Julie, just to kind of keep everybody in the loop here as far as Alice training. We trained our staff of our high school and our middle school on October the 18th. And the next phase of that will be to begin training our students. And then we'll have the Alice training up and going for some drills and such, hopefully by the first of the year in January. We'll be training our elementary staff on November the 5th for Alice training. So I'm really pleased at what we've done there, and thanks to everybody involved in that. And I know we have a Forest Hills Foundation report coming up, and I'm going to put a plug in, and probably Jim or someone will also plug it as well. But Dee, thanks to Dee and the work she's done in the foundation, this Saturday evening, we're going to have our very first Distinguished Alumni event. We'll call it the event. Okay, Distinguished Alumni event. There are still tickets available. You can get them online, where we're going to be recognizing some very quality people that have graduated from both Anderson and Turpin over the past few years. And that will be this Saturday at 7 o'clock at the Anderson Center. So, thank you. Sorry.
Thank you. That's okay.
Now
Now we're on the report section anyway. So reports to the Board of Education. First up.
Sorry.
That's a great segue. 15.1.
Well, I'd like to report from Forest Hills Foundation for Education. There's going to be an event this Saturday. Actually, I can tell you who is going to be honored.
There you go.
Anderson, from Anderson High School, the foundation will be honoring Dr. Howard Bell, a 1966 graduate, John Hayden from 1975, and Bob Coughlin from 1979. Turpin will be honoring Dr. Michael Fortin from 1981, Kristen Sherwin-Meyer from 1990, and Laura Phelps Swait from 1998, and in memoriam, they will be all honoring from the district staff, Dick West, who we all know and love. In addition to that, the foundation is also doing some additional ACT prep classes for the high school students. They'll be announcing dates shortly. The after-school access and enrichment that is being done every Tuesday and Thursday at Nagel. There's bus transportation, so kids that want to participate and need rides will have rides. That too is being funded by the foundation. And then the 6 elementary schools and Nagel will be doing the Destination Imagination program, which has just had rave reviews in the past, and they're always looking for parent or community volunteers. So if any of you out there would care to help, contact Dee Stone at the foundation. And again, go to the Distinguished Alumni event on Saturday. I'll see you there.
Thank you. Next up, our legislative liaison report.
Three things to report from the legislature. Both the House and the Senate Education Committees have been taking testimony over the past few months on the voucher program. I think that's a little bit more controversial since it is being, well, the implication is it's going to be rolled out much more broadly, and not just first grade, which is what it is this year, but it will roll each year to the next grade until it's K through 12. No action there has come out that I'm aware of that's come out of the either of the two committees. Second thing is there's a bill on Common Core to virtually eliminate the Common Core, but from what I understand from talking to some legislators, that's not really going to go anywhere, but it got a little bit of publicity, so in case you've seen something about it, it's unlikely to have much action. The third one is a bill, actually Natasha referred to some of this earlier. It had to do with Ohio law currently requires overlapping graduation requirements of both Ohio graduation test, OGT, and the high stakes into course exam. The goal of this bill is to correct the situation, so it's just a fix. It's not a major change. But those are the three things. I think after all the excitement, if you want to call it that, coming out of House Bill 59, things have kind of died back in activity for the education community.
All right. Now you.
Dropped it back in our hands to do the work. Is what they
Yeah, right.
Okay, the Safety Committee report, we will defer till next month. Saga report, the Saga meeting was on October 8th. Main topics there were that Sharon Kitzmiller and Jasmine Roush are now on the Parent Health and Wellness Committee. Jasmine is the partner with from Mercy Hospital. She's taking over Steve Fagan's. The big event for this past month was Red Ribbon Week from October 21st to the 25th. All the elementaries were involved in that. It actually got pushed off, I guess, this week. It's at Mercer and Nagel, but I can say from a parent standpoint, it was very well received in the elementaries. And then the rest of the meeting was used for working groups. There was a middle school youth summit, which is going to be November 19th. And they're going to be concentrating on social media. And then there's also a parent survey, a parent attitude survey, basically looking at the parents' behavior towards substances and how they interact with their children in their homes. So, for example, do they talk about designated drivers, or do they talk about how they got home after they were drinking otherwise? So those were the future meeting dates there. November 12th and December 10th are the meetings. They meet on Tuesdays from 3 to 4:30 at the Anderson Center. So Before we adjourn, I do want to bring up that there is a little date. Next Tuesday is Election Day. There is 4 candidates for school board. I know Rich Newman and Tony Himmelgarn are here, and Julie and I are running. It's important to get out and vote. So that is next Tuesday, November 5th. Executive session?
Yes, I move that we adjourn to executive session to discuss the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion of a public employee or official, and to prepare for, conduct, or review collective bargaining strategy.
Give a second.
Second.
Mr. Tepper?
Mr. Fruman?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mrs. Hubner?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes. Our next regular meeting is on November 18th in just 3 weeks. Enjoy Halloween,
He must have
and we'll
left.
see you then.
He was sitting next to him.
Did you say the Mississauga? Oh, never mind, not December. I thought it was November.